brothers threw their own father and sister out of the house to steal the family land. They became millionaires overnight. But within months, the city turned against them. What happened next is a real story of greed, betrayal, and a shocking twist you won't forget. Musa woke before the first call of birds. The cool air carried the scent of damp soil as he stepped onto his small farm. He worked the hoe with steady, patient strokes, the muscles in his lean arms moving like clockwork. Behind him, Amina followed with a basket of warm bread for their breakfast. Her braids glistened with the dew that hung in the soft mist. Inside the mud brick house, Karim and Bilal still slept, lost in dreams of city lights and easy money. The rising sun lit the horizon with pale gold, a calm beginning to a day that would soon turn harsh. By late afternoon, the house stirred. Karim leaned against a cracked wall, complaining about the endless work that gave them so little. Bilal agreed, his eyes fixed on the road that led to the city. He pictured tall buildings and fast cars while dust swirled around the yard. Their voices carried a sharp edge of impatience as they spoke of selling the land and chasing a richer life. Outside, the quiet field stood like an unspoken warning. When the sun dipped low, the brothers pressed their father to sell. Musa stood in the yard, the smell of freshly turned earth on his clothes, and refused. He told them the soil was their life and their future. His voice was calm but unshakable. Karim's jaw tightened. Bilal looked away, fists clenching as frustration grew. A cold silence settled over the house while night birds began to sing. Long after Amina had gone to sleep, Karim and Bilal sat close to a flickering oil lamp. The smell of kerosene filled the room. Their whispered voices planned a way to take the land for themselves. The mud walls cast long dark shapes as the flame jumped. Greed sharpened their words. Outside, the night wind rattled the old wooden shutters, but nothing softened their growing resolve. At dawn, the brothers struck. They stormed into their father's room and demanded that he leave. Musa rose without a word, taking only a small sack. Amina held a cloth bundle to her chest, eyes bright with unshed tears. The brothers stood in the doorway, tall and unyielding. The cool morning air carried the smell of damp earth as father and daughter stepped outside, leaving behind the only home they had ever known. The day stretched long as they walked dusty paths. When darkness came, they found a quiet riverbank. The night was cold but clear. Musa laid a thin blanket on the grass and looked at the stars. Amina sat nearby, the moonlight tracing her braids as she listened to the soft sound of water. Despite the hardship, a calm strength surrounded them. They shared a small piece of bread before sleep. By the next afternoon, the city walls rose ahead. Noise and color filled the air. Markets bustled with merchants calling out their prices. Musa's shoulders ached from the long walk, but he asked for work at every corner. Amina offered to wash clothes and sweep shops. Strangers watched them with curiosity. Two villagers carrying nothing but quiet determination. While Musa and Amina struggled, Karim and Bilal reveled in their sudden wealth. They sold part of the land and moved into a new city villa with marble floors and bright lights. Music played late into the night as they boasted of their success. Expensive clothes and loud laughter filled the rooms. But the emptiness beneath the celebration went unnoticed. Weeks passed. Musa found steady labor in a crowded warehouse, lifting heavy crates from dawn to dusk. Sweat soaked his tunic, but he never complained. Amina began teaching neighborhood children to read beneath a shade tree. Her patience won hearts, and the children's laughter softened the long days. At night, father and daughter shared simple meals and quiet smiles, finding dignity in small progress. Back in the city's wealthy district, Karim chased a bigger deal. Papers signed in haste soon turned against him. Numbers on the ledger bled red. As the storm clouds gathered outside the tall windows of his office, Karim sat alone, the glow of his computer screen casting a cold light on his tense face. He hid the truth from Bilal, but a quiet fear began to settle in his chest. Musa finished another long day at the warehouse and led Amina outside the city walls. They spread a thin blanket near a field of tall grass. The night air carried a cool scent of earth after a faint drizzle. Amina rested her head on her father's arm, both of them silent as insects hummed around them. The sky stretched endless and black, filled with slow-moving clouds. Though weary, Musa's face showed quiet strength as he gazed upward. At dawn, they followed the smell of warm bread into a small bakery. Mariam, a round woman with streaks of grey in her hair, noticed their tired faces and offered food without asking for payment. Musa bowed his head in thanks while Amina's eyes brightened at the kindness. They sat at a wooden bench, steam rising from fresh loaves, the warmth easing the chill of the night before. Mariam offered Musa a small job unloading flour sacks. Amina swept the floor and cleaned tables with quiet focus. The smell of yeast filled the air. Sweat lined Musa's brow, but there was a faint smile on his face as he worked steadily. Amina's careful movements brought order to the shop, her braids tucked neatly under her scarf. Back in the city center, Karim signed his first big investment contract, while Bilal watched with admiration. Papers passed quickly across a polished glass table. The investor's smooth voice promised high returns. Karim's chest swelled with pride. Outside, traffic roared beneath tall steel towers as a storm brewed far on the horizon. Money flowed quickly. The brothers threw parties in their new villa. Music echoed off marble walls while colored lights flashed. Expensive food filled the tables, and strangers filled the rooms. Karim boasted about future profits, while Bilal laughed loudly, a gold chain around his neck. They did not see how easily wealth could slip away. Each evening, after long hours of work, Musa walked to a small rented garden plot on the city's edge. He planted seeds with slow, deliberate care. The smell of wet soil and green shoots gave him peace. Amina often joined, watering rows of young plants with a clay jug. Their small garden became a steady place of hope. In the bakery, Amina began experimenting with new recipes. Her bread grew lighter and more fragrant, attracting more customers. Mariam watched proudly as the young woman kneaded dough with steady rhythm. Children crowded the doorway, eager for the first warm loaves of the day. Back in the city's financial district, rumors began to spread. The man who had taken the brothers' investment was missing. Karim dismissed the warnings, but Bilal's eyes grew uneasy. Their expensive apartment felt less secure as night settled over the tall buildings. Within days, official letters arrived. Demands for payment were stamped in red. Karim tossed the first envelope aside, jaw tight. Bilal read every word, his hands trembling. The large villa felt suddenly hollow, the echoes of their footsteps sharp in the quiet night. Tension thickened between the brothers. Bilal warned that they might lose everything, but Karim refused to listen. Voices rose, then fell into heavy silence. The villa's bright lights could not hide the growing fear. Outside, a cold wind swept the city streets. The villa grew quiet as bills piled up. House staff left one by one. Empty rooms echoed with the sound of unpaid promises. Karim stared at the pool water, dark and still. In the bakery, Amina's bread became famous. Customers lined up before dawn. Mariam spoke of opening a second shop. Musa watched proudly. his hands rough from garden work. Musa's small garden flourished. Green vegetables filled neat rows. Children from the neighborhood helped water plants. The quiet plot gave steady food and small profit. On the other hand, the developers defaulted completely. The brothers' bank accounts froze. Luxury cars were taken away. Reporters gathered outside the villa gates as the last servants left. Bilal finally went for search of his father and sister. After wandering for hours, he couldn't find them. He came back in. Sadness had stayed awake, pacing empty rooms. The sound of dripping water from the kitchen sink filled the silence. Pride and fear fought inside him. On the next day, somehow Karim found Amina. He was weeping. He asked them to forgive them. Father Musa denied, but there was sympathy for Amina. Karim went back. Later that night, Amina asked his father to ponder and forgive her brothers. After thinking for a while, Father Musa also agreed. After all, they were his sons. Next morning, Karim came back again, and this time they forgive him. Amina prepared a basket of bread and vegetables. "They are still our brothers," she said to Musa. He nodded. Together they set out toward the city. The once grand villa looked deserted. Karim and Bilal opened the door, their faces drawn. No servants, no music, only silence. Amina set the basket on the bare table. Musa spoke calmly. "We are family. Wealth or poverty does not change that." Karim lowered his head at last. Bilal's eyes filled with tears. The heavy distance between them began to fade. Night settled over the silent villa. Musa asked the brothers where all their money had gone. Karim admitted they had invested everything with a man who disappeared. Bilal confessed to gambling part of their savings, hoping to win it back. Amina listened without judgment, her eyes steady. Musa placed a small pouch of coins on the table. "This is from the garden and the bakery," he said. "It is not much, but we can begin again together." The brothers looked at the pouch as if it weighed more than gold. Karim hesitated, pride battling shame. He wanted to refuse, but exhaustion softened his voice. Bilal simply nodded, tears sliding down his cheeks. The air felt heavy with a long-delayed understanding. The next morning they visited the bank together. Screens showed zeros where fortunes once sat. Even the manager looked away, uncomfortable. For the first time, the brothers walked the city streets without expensive clothes or followers. Musa suggested they return to their old village. The brothers agreed without a word. The long road home felt different. The air clearer, their steps slower. Amina carried bread for the journey. Neighbors came out as they entered the village. Some were surprised but offered smiles and food. Old friends shook Musa's hand. Karim and Bilal lowered their eyes, humbled by the quiet kindness. Together, they cleared weeds, repaired fences, and planted new crops. Karim worked beside his father, sweat running down his face. Bilal carried water from the well. The soil that once divided them now brought them together. Weeks passed. Vegetables sprouted, and the family shared quiet meals at a rough wooden table. Laughter returned slowly, natural and unforced. The sound of night insects mixed with soft voices of forgiveness. At the village gathering place, Musa told their story to neighbors. He spoke of greed, loss, and the strength of unity. Karim and Bilal stood beside him, listening to every word. Children leaned forward, silent and wide-eyed. The next sunrise bathed their fields in soft gold. The brothers worked the soil with steady hands. Amina brought warm bread, and Musa watched with quiet pride. Their wealth was no longer in coins, but in family and honest work. Greed and pride brought loss, but humility Forgiveness and hard work restored the family. True wealth is not in riches, but in unity, honesty, and the willingness to begin again.
In the heart